Welcome to The Explainer. You know, nouns, they're pretty much the first words we ever learn, right? Mom, dad, dog, seems simple enough. But there's actually a whole world of complexity hiding just beneath the surface, and that's what gives our language its real power. So today, we're gonna break it all down and build a complete guide to understanding them. All right, let's kick things off with a little puzzle to get the brain working. Take these three things: a dog, the city of Delhi, and the idea of honesty. I mean, what could they possibly have in common? They seem totally different. But believe it or not, there's a really important connection that ties them all together. And you got it. They're all nouns. It's that simple. Nouns are basically the labels we stick on everything in our world, from the stuff we can actually see and touch, all the way to the big ideas and feelings that we can't. Okay, so let's dive right in. What is a noun? We've got to start with the absolute basics, the building blocks of our language. So at its heart, a noun is really just a naming word. That's it. It's a word for a person, like Ram, a place, like Delhi, an animal, like a dog, a thing, a table, or even something you can't touch at all, like an idea, honesty. All right, moving on. Let's talk about general versus specific names. This is kind of the first big fork in the road when we're trying to figure out what kind of noun we're looking at. And it all comes down to one simple question. Just by asking this, we can split every single noun out there into two major groups. So, on one side, you've got your common nouns. Think of these as the generic labels for things, like city or boy. And then on the other side, you have proper nouns. These are the special, specific names, like Delhi or Ram. And you know what the dead giveaway is? It's all about capitalization. Proper nouns are like the VIPs of the grammar world. They always get a capital letter. It doesn't matter where they show up in a sentence. Okay, next up, let's talk about counting. Because another huge job for nouns is to help us answer that simple question, how many? Well, when a noun is just talking about one single thing, one person, one place, one object, we call that a singular noun. Easy enough, right? But obviously, we usually need to talk about more than one thing. So what happens then? How do our nouns handle that? That's where plural nouns come into play. Plural just means more than one, and honestly, most of the time, making a noun plural is super straightforward. There's basically a three-step process. Rule 1, for most words, you just tack on an S. Rule 2, if a word has a specific ending, you add ES instead. And then you have your oddballs, the irregular ones where the whole spelling changes, like man to men. All right, so we've got one and we've got more than one. But what about when you have a whole bunch of things, but you want to talk about them as a single group? That's exactly what collective nouns are for. They're these really cool, specific words for an entire group. Like a class of students, a team of players, or a flock of birds. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, so pay attention. Even though a word like team is talking about a bunch of people, in grammar, we treat the word itself as singular. That's why you'd say the team is winning, not the team are winning. It's a key detail. Okay, let's get into our final section here, a noun's deeper identity. Now we're going to look at the very nature of the noun itself. First up is gender. And thankfully, in English grammar, this is pretty simple. You've got masculine for males, like king or boy. You've got feminine for females, like queen or girl. And then there's neuter, which is for things that don't have a gender, like a book or a car. And that brings us to our very last distinction. And this one is super practical. The question is simply, can you count it? This one question splits nouns into our last two categories. First, you have countable nouns. These are things you can literally count, right? 1 apple, 3 chairs, easy. But then you have uncountable nouns, and these are usually substances or ideas you can't count. Think about it: water, rice, honesty. You can't say, I have 3 waters, right? But you can have some water. That's the key difference. All right, let's wrap this all up in our final section, your noun toolkit. It's time to put all these pieces together. And I really want you to think of all these categories less like boring grammar rules and more like tools in a toolkit. When you understand them, you can be so much more precise and clear with your language. So here it is, the whole thing in a nutshell. This is your cheat sheet. You can take any noun in the world, ask these 4 simple questions, and know exactly what you're dealing with. Is it a general or special name? How many? Male, female, or thing? And can I count it? That's it. You know, getting a handle on nouns is really the first big step to mastering a language. It's not just about passing a grammar test. It's about having the power to name and define your world with real confidence. So we've given you the tools. The real question is, how are you going to name your world?